thank you so much for having me, and congratulations to all the participations, to all the participants, because I think it's a great idea for their future to do this kind of activities. It's really good. As I said, as you said, my name is Franco. I am come from Italy, although currently I'm based in Brussels, in Belgium. I live just a few blocks away from the European Parliament, if you've ever heard of this European institution. Um, I ended up here after many moves around, mostly Europe, but a bit of US as well. Um, and I think that maybe we can go in chronological order before getting about to talk about why I'm here. It's interesting that I heard Madeleine talking about English and philosophy, because that's where I started as well. I started in my high school was called the Liceo Classico, which is like classical studies. We studied a lot of literature, a lot of philosophy. We also studied Latin and Greek, but not modern Greek, which would be useful if you ever go to Greece on holiday. My Greek would be completely useless because it's the old, it's the ancient one. I am really glad that I spent these 5 years in high school doing studying these things, because these 5 years taught me how to talk better, how to write better, the richness which is lying in knowing multiple languages, and also philosophy. It was it didn't feel particularly useful sometimes while I was doing that, but now that this time is 25 years ago, I can tell you that it was extremely important for me, for my career development, to be well versed in writing. People still now people appreciate the fact that when I write an email, it's very clear. Why? And I can tell you, in the engineering world, it's not so common. There are so much frustration and wasted time just due to misunderstandings, and due to the fact that people write in a way that sometimes is not super clear for another reader. It's clear for them, but not for the person they're writing to. Um, so yeah, if you're studying this type of topics, rest assured that no matter what you do in the future, it's a huge treasure for you, for your future. um, and it's both in the techniques, but sometimes it's even in the content itself, because I was surprised recently. I was doing some training about public speaking, and it was striking for me to hear that most of the public speaking technique, like I think the guy said something like 60 or 70% of the things that he was learning, they were already taught back in ancient Greece. So some things from very old era are still very relevant to the present. Anyway, so I spent 5 years studying these things, and then I moved on to something completely different, because I started to study physics. So um, I'm sure you know what physics is, and how was it relevant for me in the future, for my future. Well, I think the the most important skill that I developed at that time was the capability to um, to model things, to observe um, phenomena which are complex, and try to model them, which means try to understand them by breaking them down into pieces and understanding how each of these pieces work with each other and which ones are the most important for a certain outcome. Um, and this is something again that turned out to be super useful for the future, because this is true both um, in physics but also in engineering and in pretty much any job you want to do. The capability of observing, thinking, and creating a mental model for what's going on, and even better if you can go and test your model and actually in order to deepen your understanding. um, so starting studying physics was a big change because of that, and also because I went from a very subjective matter such as philosophy and literature to an extremely objective one, meaning that, you know, in philosophy there are no right answers necessarily. Everybody has its own take. In math, it's not the case. There's only one right answer, and it was a big shift of perspective for me, and it was very interesting because it was kind of the other side of another way of thinking. Um, and my years at the uni were the first time also that I moved abroad. I moved to Berlin for 2 years in Germany, and it and I'm citing this because one of the messages that I think I'd like to get across is that experiences abroad have shaped me in a way that I can't even really describe. Um, and they have been extremely interesting, uh, sometimes challenging, but most of all, it's a huge amount of fun, to be really honest. It was great to study abroad, to work abroad. So I do encourage you. Um, I, I consider it as a must right now. Doesn't matter if you know other languages or if you don't by now. With English, you will survive for the first 2 weeks and then you'll thrive pretty much everywhere. And you will be able to take your time into learning as much as you want of your new target language without this being a barrier for you to experience something very important and pleasant and fun. So I was having the time of my life in Berlin for 2 years at the end of my studies, to the point that when I finished, I didn't go back to Italy where I was born and raised, but I moved to Paris because I was offered a PhD there. And so I decided to carry on with physics for 3 more years into this PhD. It was a very interesting experience because I went from learning to actually starting to discover things, which was something very uh, stressful sometimes, but also extremely interesting and a great source of motivation for me. Um, and this is another important point. I think that you while you grow, um, I do encourage you to be sensible to what triggers you in a positive way, what touches your curiosity? What are the little things that make you think, "Oh, this is really cool," because this cool is a source of motivation for you to get through the hard times, because no job is easy. There's nothing like a free lunch, I think you say. You know, whatever you decide to do, if you want to grow and evolve, you'll always go through moments where you're tired, where it doesn't work, where it doesn't work the way you were hoping. And being into something that you like, that you enjoy, is going to fuel you through different and difficult situations in a way that nothing else does. Like if you're doing a difficult job and you're paid 10 times more, it doesn't is not as motivating as just being as just loving what you're doing. Um, and for me, it was really difficult to find something like a calling. So if you have one, that's great. Then just go for it, and stay open to change, because this might happen. If you don't have one, well, welcome to the club. um, but it's not a big deal either. Try out things and keep your ears and your heart open to whatever makes you vibe, because when you find it, it can be it can be extremely motivating. um, and yeah, and during my PhD, I think I was vibing quite a lot with my experiments. I did things that I think are cool, and that got me through the many months of the experiments not working, the papers not being published, and things like that. And so we come to the second part of my, so the non-academical part of my careers, because when I finished my PhD, it was 2008, and at that time there was a huge economic crisis, and because of that, I kind of thought that public research would be the first thing that would have been killed in terms of investments. And also, I made some personal considerations, like in academia after the PhD, it's very common that people spend 2 years in a country doing a postdoc, it's called, and then 2 years in another country, and so on. You have to move around quite a bit before getting a permanent position somewhere. And I thought at that time that would be a bit too much for me at a personal level, as much as I like to travel and I moved around. But to be forced to do so, it was not acceptable for me. And so I decided to try out something different, which was the private sector, the business. Um, and so I started into the railways sector, which was something I had never considered ever, just until the day when, a couple of months before I defended my PhD thesis, I found out that in my hometown there was this international company that at that time was called Ansaldo. Now it's part of the Hitachi group. And so, yeah, I just sent out a CV. I went through a few interviews and I just got hired. And I had absolutely no idea about what railways was about. They told me, "Don't worry, you'll figure it out. You have a PhD in physics. You have solved more difficult problems than what we are used to do here," which in some sense is true. But and so I got on board and I started this experience with on a sort of blank sheet and with an open mind. And I met very interesting colleagues, and I discovered that railways is so much more than just steel on steel, just the trains. It's a very interesting sector, very promising, very digital and very modern nowadays. And well, throughout, I've been in this business for about 16 years now, and I've spent 15 in my first company. It's called Hitachi now, Hitachi Rail. And now I'm part of the Alstom group. Both companies are competitors, are manufacturers of trains, so just locomotives and wagons, and manufacturers of train signaling, rail signaling. Now, signaling is a very niche technology. It's the technology that makes sure that the trains can run safely and don't bump into each other or don't derail because of high speed. Um, so it's a very specific technology, which is maybe not as complex from some perspective. It's not rocket science. We're not SpaceX for sure. Um, but it has a huge impact on the lives of the people. First, because it's a safety type of technology. Because if a train derails, then that becomes an absolute disaster. It can have catastrophic consequences. Uh, and the other less catastrophic consequence that can have is that if rail signaling goes wrong, then many people get stuck somewhere in the metro, and they cannot get to work. Now, I know that in the US this is something that is not experienced by many people because it's a very car oriented country. But if you've ever been or lived in a major city like New York, or Chicago, um, the city could not live without the metro. If you imagine even just a 15 minutes shutdown of the metro system, that would cause a huge amount of problems for the whole community. Um, so my what did I find when I entered in this sector? Well, first of all, it's these companies are mainly engineering companies, so you will find a lot of engineers. There's a lot of software development involved of different kinds. And that's maybe the easier part to grasp. So if you are interested into coding and software development and software testing, it's definitely a very solid place to work, because there's a lot of projects. It's not a crazily fast moving sector, so it's a nice place to work. But in addition to that, the companies that work in this sector are pretty big. So you will find jobs which are other technical jobs like system engineering and system integration, which are extremely interesting. Now, these are specific type of jobs. If you're interested, you can look them up. But it's how can I say? It's different from coding because I've been a system engineer and I've never written a single line of code for a train. But I worked a lot into integrating different systems together and designing them for the needs of different railways and metro systems. Um, and so, and of course, you also have all the other type of jobs like salesman or maintenance. Um, so it's a sector in which you will find different type of jobs, but all with the common characteristic that it's a very solid and reliable sector. It's not a fad, so to say. Um, Among the things that I liked the most in all these years, for sure, there has been the fact that this job has allowed me to travel a lot. I've been on business trips from, I think, the west est that I've been was San Francisco, and the east est that I've been was Brisbane, I would say. Brisbane in Australia. So I've been traveling all over the world, and it's been an extremely interesting experience. Oh, I do have questions. Oh, I love that. I just figured out now. Um, I'll get back to you, Callie, in a couple of minutes. So yeah, the international side of this has been extremely interesting, because in the end, railways is a bit the same everywhere, but with some specific demands and needs. Like last 6 years, I was serving the metro of Brussels, so it's a metro system with some specific needs, which is basically more trains more often, because during rush hour you have everybody wants to get to work or back home. But also before doing that, I've been in the desert in Australia to serve a mining company who was to make sure that their trains, which are about 2 kilometers long and super heavy because are filled with rocks, iron basically, and they wanted these trains to drive without to be able to function without a driver, and so we developed this driverless system. So there are many cases, there are many ways in which rail exists, and the companies are there's few companies who do that, and they do the projects worldwide. So if you join the sector and one of these big companies, you will be able to travel quite a bit if you like, and to experience very different contexts. So back to Cali. Which roles at Alstom generally more about developing as more part of an overall technology, and which ones are responsible for managing large projects overall? Nice. I assume a degree in design engineering would really pertain to a lot of roles at Alstom. So system engineering, system design engineering, absolutely. We system engineers actually are a very key part of the process. So if you're interested, Alstom is present all over the US and in Canada. So absolutely, you would be super welcome for whatever level, even internship, and then also after your degree. Absolutely, very, very pertinent. Concerning the other question, which is also very interesting, developing a small part of an overall technology for me sounds like really the software development part. So when you are developing software, writing code, you are typically concentrating on one bit of the system, and sometimes you also become maybe the super expert of that part. And so that's the type of role that I would see. So testing and software development. Instead, the ones which are responsible for managing large projects, I can tell you, let's say, a railway system, or let's say a railway contract, is oftentimes um, sold as a whole package. Like, for instance, a metro authority decides to open a new line. They will have, it's going to be a massive project, okay? They'll have to hire a contractor to make the holes and the tunnels under the city, and they will have to build the stations and so on. Now, the rail part of it is going to be the trains, the cars, and the signaling, typically. And it's and within this project, you will have when Alstom wins the contract, there will be a big organization within Alstom, which is going to be the project. You will have typically one or two figures like the project engineer and the project director and the project manager. These three people are going to be responsible for the overall thing. The project manager more for the financial part of it, and the project engineer more for the technical part of it. But then all of these kinds of breaks down into a system engineering part of the work, which decides which subsystems needs to be implemented. And so these are all relatively, how can I say, pertaining to a relatively large scope, because even if you think, okay, we split the job into signaling and rolling stock, so the train itself, the locos, the train is a very complex system in itself. You will have the doors, the bogies, the engines, the traction part, the control systems. It's a very, very complex machine. And similarly, also the signal system, you will have the onboard part, the wayside part, the part related to safety, the part related to the automatic movement of the train, the part related to managing the traffic. So deciding how many trains can go on the line, if you need more, if you need less, if you need to divert them because there's an accident or something like that. So it's really a system of systems where many systems are developed in-house, but many others are bought from other suppliers. So you buy products that you need to put together and integrate them. So one of the important jobs is the systems integrator. So a person who is not capable to write code for every system, but he is able to understand how they function and kind of put them together and make sure he's able to find when it doesn't work where the problem is. So I hope I answered the question, but you are spot on. There are both very specific roles on a specific subsystems, but there's a lot of transversal roles which are super interesting. Um, oh yeah, I see that you are remembering about the subway crash. Yeah, it's a very, it's a safety related and um, system. Have you been involved in any projects in Toronto, for example, the Ontario line? My former employer is involved in the Ontario line. It's called the Hitachi Rail. Um, and yeah, I mean, there are so many metro projects around the world. And I think Canada is talking about, since we're talking about Canada, it's talking about a high-speed rail line, I think, from Montreal to Toronto. Probably politicians have been talking about that for like 20 years, but I think that it might happen, because that's another dimension that I think you might enjoy in North America if you finally decide to do these large infrastructure projects. Um, in Europe, we have many capitals which are just 500 to 1,000 kilometers apart, and on this type of distance, having a high speed link between two cities as a customer is just fantastic, because you travel an hour and you're well, in Europe you are abroad, especially in Belgium, which is a small country. But even in the US, moving from one state capital to another over high speed rail, I'm sure many people will find it just mind blowing, because just step on a train in the city center, and 2 hours later you are somewhere else, and you didn't have to drive or stress out about your flight. And there's one train every hour or so, and that's something really cool. That if you ever happen to travel to Europe, I do suggest you try to travel through the capitals using high speed line, because it's yeah, I love it. What do project engineers generally study? Um, that's an interesting one. I Well, most of them are engineers, even though I'm a physicist. I think there's a lot of training that you do on the job, but there are system engineering courses for sure that can help a lot for a project engineer. I think that it's good to have some sense of business. Having some business courses is also very helpful. Um, but in the technical domain, typically the trajectory that I see is that oftentimes you have engineers that join the company which are more like specialists of a certain part, like traction power or signaling. Um, and then they spend 2 or 3 years in that position. They gain more and more knowledge about the overall system out of curiosity also. And also, I mean, if you are motivated, you can go on site and test and talk to your colleagues, and you start to broaden your understanding. And at that point, becoming a project engineer becomes very, actually the company is looking for people who are experts, but which like to sort of raise their horizon a little bit and watch the things from a little bit a higher position, and an overall type of big picture view. Um, because for these type of roles, it's it's useful, and I think that's the trajectory. It's very classical. You enter like a more of a specialist, but you say that you want to know more, and some people hop like they do, like in Alstom where I work, in Chiaravalloti here in Belgium. We have both a traction part of the company, so just the engines of the locomotives, and then we have a signaling part. And there's many people who spend like 2 or 3 years in a role on one side, and they go on the other side for 2 or 3 years, and that's really good because you build up knowledge and an understanding of the overall system and how it works. Which type of engineers are generally involved in designing these trains? Many types of different engineers, because as I said, the trains have many different subsystems in them. So the most typical ones are, of course, power generation engineering, engines, electrical. There's a lot of electronics, of course, but also ergonomy, which is, I don't know if you're familiar with what ergonomy is, but ergonomics is the study of how oh my God, I'm trying to define ergonomics, and it's not easy. Look it up. But how technology can be adapted to humans to make it more usable and user friendly, pretty much. So ergonomics in a train are very important for both the drivers and for the comfort of the passengers. So almost any type of engineer really is involved. So yeah, whatever courses you are, whatever type of engineering you are considering, give it a shot, because even construction engineering, of course, we have the problem of having the catenary lines overhead, and how to build the poles to hold the catenary lines in position, especially for high-speed trains. It's a whole science in it. So even if you did this kind of structural and building engineering, you'd be welcome. Um, Question from Madeleine. How do you see the role of digitalization transforming the railway industry in the next few years? This is huge. Very, very good point. Also, what are your thoughts on the high-speed rail via going back to? Do you think there are any concerns for this advancement? Well, first of all, digitalization is coming to the railway sector in a very, very strong manner. It's been, I mean, the old style lights, traffic light type of signals in railways are the old era of signaling. Right now, the modern signaling is it does not have any lights. Also, because when you have a train which is traveling at 350 kilometers an hour, it's really hard for the driver to to see whether the light was red. It's very inconvenient. So right now, all the signaling is digitalized. So basically, your signaling system is based on a number of sensors that measure where exactly the train is and at what speed it is going. And this information is all digitally transmitted to a control center, which decides if the train is fast enough or should decelerate or accelerate and so on, and sends back to the train the information over radio, 5G kind of radio. And it's all displayed on a display for the driver, if there is a driver. And the driver will act based on what he sees on his display. But he does not have to look for signals anymore, or lights or traffic lights. So it was already a very digitalized world. But lately, with the introduction of the Internet of Things and the fact that networks are available pretty much everywhere for very low cost, there has been a first revolution. Um, Richard, I see you're raising a hand, so I'm gonna stop to here.
Oh, you can you can finish your sentence. I was just gonna ask another question.
Okay, good, good. So I was saying the first big revolution has been the Internet of Things, because railways are very big systems with a lot of data being generated. And thanks to the Internet of Things, you can grab this data and centralize all the data in the same database. And you can run big data analysis on it and gain very, very important information about how to optimize your network, how to make your trains run smoother or cheaper or with less energy consumption and this kind of things. This was the first one. And now the new one, which is also impacting me personally, actually, in my job, is artificial intelligence. Because so fast forwarding to what I'm doing now, I'm now developing systems that are capable to drive trains in an autonomous way without the need of any driver. Okay, this technology, driverless technology, is something which has been known within metro systems for quite a while. Um, but now we are introducing it into the railways, both freight and passengers. And because of that, and there's a challenge in it, which is the fact that metro trains are short and they are light and they kind of look like each other, all of them, so are relatively easy to drive. But as you can imagine, in the traditional rail, you can have like a short passenger regional train, but you could also have a huge freight train, or you could have a bullet train who is traveling, as I said, 350 kilometers per hour. And these type of trains behave very differently in terms of response to acceleration and braking, and that makes it very difficult for a system to drive them, because the system doesn't know in principle how to drive them, how they behave. And if you want to describe that and make it work with a traditional approach, you need to make a model of the train, fine tune it, and it can be very complicated and long. While with artificial intelligence, our idea is that we would bring an AI on the train who has no idea about what train it is, but just by running a few times back and forth, it would be capable to self-train itself, um, and learn how to drive this train in the best way. So digitalization is really at the heart of signaling right now, which is the reason why, for instance, if you are a cybersecurity expert, you will be super sought after by train signaling companies, because now that we are fully digital, we are also fully vulnerable potentially to attacks. And since we are critical infrastructure and safety critical for the safety of people, we could be target of a terrorist attack. If you want to create a big and risky mess, you mess with the signaling of a high-speed train entering a station in the middle of a capital city. You can wreak havoc if you can manage that. So even cybersecurity is really at the core of the needs of our companies. I can tell you our cybersecurity teams are never big enough. Richard, your time.
Yeah, still, thank you so much for all that information. It was very interesting. So I just wanted to ask you, since you're a program manager, I think program management
Yeah,
is very interesting, although I'm not too sure if a lot of people have heard about it. So could you first tell us what you do as a program manager, and then tell us about the motivate intrinsic motivations, problem-solving style, lifestyle, core values, and the future potential of being a program manager?
absolutely. Yeah. Nice question. Thanks. What is program management? Well, in the terms of my company, which are also pretty standard terms, um, we make a distinction between a project and a program. A project is a contract with a customer for the implementation of railways, so a specific contract. A program is an initiative to develop one or more products that will be sold in the framework of projects. Okay, so to make my specific example, I am the manager of a program who is called ATO, Automatic Train Operation. And what we develop is some hardware and some software that we can install on board the trains. And they will be this hardware and software will be capable to drive the train in an autonomous manner, meaning with little or zero intervention from a human being. Now, this is a program, meaning that our objective is to develop this system and to develop only one product, which will be customizable and configurable to be used by different projects around the world. For instance, currently, I can tell you that the same box with the same software will be used in Luxembourg, Germany, India, Philippines, Brazil, UK, and I would say that's about it for the committed contracts. But all these 6 contracts that you can see are pretty much around the world. They will all use the same product, the same box. So I am responsible for developing the generic product. So this product that can be customized then and fine tuned. We have some parameters depending on the type of trains that you are driving and things like that. So I manage as a program manager. I have a technical sidekick, which is my product development manager, who is really the super technical guy, the kind of the technical guru of my program. As a program manager, I manage both the technical, mainly through this guy, and the financial side of it. Because before winning, before winning a contract, you have to develop a product that you can sell. So initially, the company is going to decide, okay, I'm going to put a few millions into a program, and we will develop this little product, and then we will sell it to multiple customers. So that's where I act, and what's interesting about it is that, as I said, well, we do make the actual innovation inside the company because we created the new products, and we have to be both innovative but also look at what is the requests from the market. And I think it's a type of job which has a very very bright future because humans will not get bored about innovating and creating new products anytime soon. And the type of skills that we have as program managers are not super technical, super specific. I believe that tomorrow I could go and be the program manager of, I don't know, air conditioning system or other technological system, um, because I will leverage on my team of super technical experts. But there are some things of the work like managing a budget, managing a team, keeping them motivated, looking for issues, looking for solving problems, helping them express the best really of their potential. That these are the things that are typical of this job. Now, since we are talking about this, I can tell you that in general, there was one thing that I wanted to share with you. Many of the jobs which end in management have a certain degree of stress associated with it. Because managing something means that typically when everything goes fine, you don't need a manager. When things are problematic, then everybody's calling me. And because of that, one of the things that I wanted to share is that I think that it's important for you guys going through your studies to not only develop your technical knowledge in the academic way, but also to develop yourself and your capability to cope with stress and difficult situations, which is not something that is given. There's a lot that we can learn. And for instance, one of the things that I wanted to share is that one of the most important skills, as I said, is the capability to cope with stress. And no matter what job you do. If you're a teacher, you will be super stressed most likely, and your capability to cope with this stress is going to be a crucial aspect of how you not only you thrive in your career, but also how you live your life. Because when you are super stressed and you don't know how to handle that, then it can be really bad for you as a person. So while you're young, I do encourage you into finding and sort of cultivating activities that make you feel good, that make you relaxed, that make you that energize you, and that's something that is, it might look less important when you're young, because when you're young you have more energy. Now I'm 43, and there are some days of my week where I feel 85. Like I feel super tired and demotivated, and I know that in order to get out of that state, I need to do things that I love. It could be music, it can be hiking, it can be sports, it can be whatever. But I do encourage you to look for this, which can be your passion. And right now, it comes at no cost for you to do it. But in 10 years, in 20 years, it's going to be a bit of a life-saving thing to be able to do these things that help you relax, help you disconnect, help you feeling creative again. Because one of the things that are often forgotten is that engineering, like good engineering, is a lot about being creative. Good problem solving is the problem solving that is made by people who think outside the box and are really creative. And when you work for many years in big engineering companies, you kind of lose this. There's the risk to lose this creativity push. While it's super important to be, in order to be competitive and to be efficient. So yeah, um, I see. Oh, we also first, Richard. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I was just wondering, what are some of the core values that drive you in your career?
Oh, nice. Um, co- I think that's a very good question, because I think that core values are something that we don't study, but as a technical subject, but are super important and also affect a lot how you live your life and your professional life. Um, one of the values that motivated me in joining this is that signaling and railway system are about the safety of people. So I'm proud that people can travel safely back and home back to from home to work and back, and around the globe, thanks to the fact that we are doing a quality work. So that's one of the things, like serving the community in this way. Uh, and another one, which is important, I think, for management, is uh, helping the the team to live a professional life that is fulfilling, and people stay motivated and healthy, because burnout is a thing. Stay healthy and motivated and happy about what they do. In the end, work is one third, 8 hours out of 24. Of our average weekday. So I think that as a manager, you can have a very positive, or unfortunately sometimes very negative, if you do things wrongly, impact on the lives of people. So as a manager, for me, it's really important uh, to work about the well-being, on the well-being of my team. And it's something really difficult sometimes, because humans are very complicated systems, and psychology is a very non-linear science. Uh, but that's one of the challenges and of the things that motivates me a lot, is that being into business and into management, you have a very sweet mix of very technical aspects, so very black and white, very mathematical and physical, and also very psychological sides, which are very human in the end, to keep a team motivated, to have a nice dynamics. You have to work out your social muscle in your head, to figure out how people are interacting, how you can encourage safe and healthy interactions between them. So that's one of the values that drives me, to the idea to make a positive impact on the professional personal life of the people by helping them express their potential to the best.
Yeah, that's really insightful. And we are over time. So before we wrap up, there's one more question in the chat.
Right,
I
about the legal and safety.
yes.
Okay, how can companies address legal and safety issues that might arise in trying to use neural networks for driverless trains with regards to their box problem? Very interesting, very interesting. Well, the trick in this case is that in railways systems there are two type of systems: safety critical systems and non-safety critical systems. Now, safety critical systems could never use neural networks to function because of the box problem. You can look it up if you're curious, but everything which is safety integrity related, it's called. There are four levels: SIL, and the top one is SIL4, and our systems are of this kind. And in this case, you cannot have anything like that. But in the case of my driverless system, what the architecture of the hardware and software is made in such a way that my system is working in a safe bubble, meaning that I can accelerate, I can brake, and I can do all kind of things as long as I keep the position and speed of the train within a certain envelope, okay, within a certain area in space and in speed. Within this bubble, I can do whatever I want. But if my system messes up and, for instance, keep accelerating, at a certain point, I will touch the border of this bubble. Either I go too far or either I go too fast. And in this case, there will be another system, which is the train protection system, which is a SIL4, so it's a safety system, who is everything, the architecture is designed in such a way that if I do that, if I drive the train too fast or too far, the protection system will shut down the driverless system, and it will break, and the train will stop. It will declare it's in failure state. It will not move again until a physical person, a driver, goes there to pick them up. But that's how safety is ensured. So, very good question, Siobhan. You just picked one of the key aspects of the architecture of the system of our systems.
I just have one last question before we wrap up.
Mhm.
How is the lifestyle fit for being a program manager? So how is the work-life balance? Like how long do you have to work? And do you ever have to think about your work outside of your work hours?
Very good question as well. So I think that this strongly depends on the companies, from one company to another. Um, I work in a French company originally, where for which for the French vacations are sacred, and that's good from a work-life balance perspective. To be very clear, I work 40 hours a week. Uh, and sometimes I think about work outside of working hours for sure. And I did a lot of nights in the past when I went site testing. Of course, if you're working the night, you don't work in the day, and so on. Um, I think that, as I said, it depends. But the way I think about it is that if you want to stay creative, which is absolutely a need for any job of this level, you cannot work 60 hours a week. If you do that, you will not be creative for long. I mean, if you're 25, you might pull through a couple of weeks of that, or maybe even 4 or 5, but it's not going to work forever, and you are depleting your energies, and it's just not a good idea. In the end, the 40 hours work week is by far the longest that I think is feasible for a human being who needs to function and solve complex problems. Um, Therefore, that's it. Then I think there's and I mean, this question reconnects to what I said about what do you do to recharge your batteries, because you will see that in the future when you will have kids. Kids are amazing, but are also a huge energy drainer. I'm a dad of two. My two kids are 3 and 6, and it's very challenging, to because they wake you up in the night and many things. So you have less and less opportunities to recharge your energies. Your body becomes less efficient to recharge your energy, and that's why energy boosting activities are very important. Rest is super important, and also your psychological safety and psychological and emotional state is very important. If you are in a job where you are committed and there are deadlines, you can get shaken up quite a bit by what happens around you. So always consider the possibility of reaching out not only to friends but also to professionals. I have a guy who is a psychiatrist, which I call from time to time, not only when I feel that I'm stressed out, or even just for discussing about team issues and so on. He's acting like a consultant or so, and it's super helpful. So this aspect can be is a non-technical, it's not engineering, but it's going to impact you and your teams big time. So do keep that in mind for yourself and for the others.